Our trust in government is the lowest it's been in decades. Many say the government is ruling us instead of working for the American people.
We also know that Washington, D.C. will never fix itself.
But what if the framers of the Constitution foresaw a potential need to restrain the power of the very government they created?
Article 5 Convention of the States is a safe route to stopping federal overreach.
Very simply, what does Article 5 say?
Article 5 gives the states the power to call a convention to propose amendments. Same thing as Congress.
This week, a look at an important movement aiming to return more power to the people.
There's been huge hype to sell electric vehicles to the American public.
So electrification is a governmental and environmental-driven agenda. It's not a consumer initiative. There's not a lot of people out there saying, where's my EV?
This week, a look at an EV bust and the frustration of electrification.
And cancer is rising at an alarming rate. There are questions about the cause and potential connections.
And what we're seeing with the pandemic is cancer changing. There was cancer pre-pandemic, and there's cancer post-pandemic. They are not the same thing.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Disillusion with the federal government is nothing new, but in some corners it seems to have reached a crescendo. The disastrous COVID response, a debt that seems irretrievably high, government censorship, a dual system of justice, drugs, crime, illegal immigration out of control, just some of the persistent complaints. All of that has breathed life into a political campaign you may start hearing more about. It's a push to invoke a provision under the Constitution to convene a convention of states to rein in big government. Supporters and opponents say it's closer than you may think to actually happening. This is a simulation of what a convention of states might look like, a dry run organized by advocates last year.
We do have the opportunity to unleash economic, environmental, and constitutional renaissance in the United States.
What is the impetus and what is the Convention of States movement?
Well, on a personal level, for me, the impetus was my frustration with not really having accomplished the change that I wanted to see out of the Tea Party movement. All these people.
Mark Meckler was a top organizer in the Tea Party, a popular movement started after controversial government bailouts of banks and insurance and car companies in the economic meltdown of 2008. A wave of Tea Party candidates swept into Washington, D.C. with the mission of reining in big government.
When all these people got elected, the ideas got discussed, then they went to the D.C. swamp and they were just eaten by the swamp. I was there.
Now Meckler heads a logical follow-on, a group called Convention of States Action, which is organizing grassroots campaigns in every state to push back on big government and what they see as systemic waste and corruption.
Even Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln, who favored national government, emphasized that Article 5 gives states authority over the national government. Article 5 Convention of the States is a safe route to stopping federal overreach.
Very simply, what does Article 5 say?
So the second clause of Article 5 gives the states the power to call a convention to propose amendments. Same thing as Congress. When 2/3 of the states want to gather in convention, they do. They propose an amendment or amendments, and those go out to the states for ratification. We've never done that in the entire history of the country.
To date, 19 states have passed Convention of States resolutions, starting with Georgia, Alaska, and Florida in 2014, and more recently, Nebraska, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Wisconsin in 2022, following several years of lobbying.
Our founders recognized when they were drafting the Constitution, Congress cannot be the only body that's allowed to propose amendments. If so, we're never going to get amendments that are going to restrain the power of the government.
This rally was last month in Pennsylvania, one of 20 states considering Convention of States resolutions this year. To call a convention, at least 2/3 of the states, or 34, must agree. Activists are pressing in all 50 states to try to get the required support.
We're at 19 states, so past halfway, we have 15 states to go.
That's just the beginning. At the convention, agreement from a majority, 26 states, would be required to propose any constitutional amendments. And 3/4, or 38 states, would have to approve or ratify any amendment for it to be added to the U.S. Constitution.
We all know that our government is way off track. The debt is astronomical and is going to cripple not only our own freedom and our own economy, but our children and our grandchildren are going to be effectively slaves paying for all the things that we're spending money on today. And we also know that Washington, D.C. will never fix itself.
What is the working agreement that the states that have gotten on board so far are working under?
The three subject matter areas being worked right now is term limits. Most Americans love the idea of term limits for Congress, but also term limits for staffers and bureaucrats. Second is anything that would impose fiscal restraints on the federal government. And then last, and I think most important, is anything that would limit the scope, the power, or the jurisdiction of the federal amendment. What I mean by that is the original Constitution had 17 enumerated powers. The federal government does pretty much everything nowadays way outside that scope, and we need to rein that in and tell the federal government that there are areas they're not allowed to be involved in.
Support for a convention of states tends to be associated with Republicans, but like the Tea Party, its tenets have broader support among a frustrated electorate.
We have one of our lead sponsors in Pennsylvania is a Democrat. I think we now have 6 or 7 lead sponsors in Illinois are Democrats. And the reason is the things that we're asking for are not partisan. And we're saying balance your budget. About 85% of Americans think that. We're saying that the federal government does too much. Whatever we think that they do too much of, almost everybody agrees they do too much. People believe in term limits, like everybody's frustrated with Congress. So it's really not a partisan thing.
It turns out opposition, too, crosses party lines. The left is calling a convention of states movement radical, extreme, undemocratic, far-right, and dangerous.
We are talking about an incredibly radical vision of America. But this time it would be made permanent by a nuclear option that exists in the Constitution's Article 5.
Liberal activist group Common Cause says wealthy donors, corporations, and radical far-right actors are pushing calls for an Article 5 convention to reshape our Constitution for their own benefit.
Have you ever posted anything on social media?
But a major opponent doesn't come from the far left. It's the John Birch Society, which advocates for less government, more responsibility.
They assure us our right to bear arms is not at risk.
The John Birch Society argues that a convention of states is a way tricksters are plotting to limit the Second Amendment right to bear arms.
For example, they wish to clarify that the right to bear arms only applies to military and police forces, which would effectively repeal the Second Amendment. Why would they be holding study groups addressing the Second Amendment when this is outside the scope of their convention?
This year, North Carolina could become the next of 34 states required to hold a convention of states.
We passed the House last year, so it's just the Senate this year. I think we're going to get that done. I think that'll be the 20th state.
But assuming supporters can eventually clear the many hurdles, if the idea is to rein in a federal government out of control, who says that government would obey new limits set by the people? It seems to me if the enforcers are the offenders, they're free to do as they wish. Let's say there is a constitutional amendment that requires some kind of balanced budget or a big change in how business is done in Washington, and they just don't do it. What happens?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best question there is. The reality is the single most politically muscular act in our entire system of governance is the passing and ratifying of an amendment. Because it takes 38 states to ratify, it means the vast majority of the country are on board with it. Also, politicians do what they're incentivized to do. One of the reasons they don't make tough decisions like cutting spending right now is because the incentives are broken. They won't get reelected if they do that. If they have a constitution forcing them to do that, it's a different incentive system.
And lastly, do you think as of today this is a long shot?
I don't think it's a long shot. I really don't. The question is, do we get it done soon enough? That's really my big question, not whether it happens. Do we get it done before the country comes apart?
When the federal government overstepped its boundaries, we could recalibrate the rules to take power away from Washington, D.C. and give it back to the people and to the states.
Meckler's group says 66% of voters support the idea of imposing fiscal restraint on the federal government and limiting its power. That includes 75% of Republicans, 55% of Democrats, and 62% of others. When we return, electric cars losing energy? For a decade and a half, the U.S. government has pushed electric vehicles on the American public using a combination of laws, financial incentives, and guilt as motivators. Lisa Fletcher looks into why the result isn't turning out to be as many hoped.
When the world's most famous electric car company announced its aggressively priced Model 3 sedan, it seemed the future for EVs was assured.
In terms of price, well, of course, it'll be $35,000.
Tesla's innovation had helped dramatically grow the electric vehicle market. And in 2021, Tesla inked a single deal for 100,000 cars.
Those purchases, total value of about $4.2 billion.
We'll come back to that deal with Hertz, but this isn't a story about Tesla. It's a story about consumers and a decade-long government effort to change car buying behavior. An effort that President Obama kicked into high gear in 2011.
With more research and incentives, we can break our dependence on oil with biofuels and become the first country to have 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2015.
His administration gave billions in taxpayer-funded loans to build new car and battery factories and raised fuel efficiency standards to incentivize electric over gasoline. Congress approved tax credits for consumers buying an EV. But by 2016, just 500,000 electric vehicles had been sold, missing the 1 million mark goal, which didn't happen until 2018. Fast forward a few years, and President Biden picked up where Obama left off. Happy to be seen behind the wheel when Ford debuted an electric version of the nation's favorite half-ton truck.
Mr. President!
This sucker's quick.
In 2023, more than a record 1 million EVs were sold in the United States. But by the end of the year, it was clear things were changing for the worse.
Today, Ford announced it's delaying the rollout of its new all-electric pickup truck until 2026.
With major manufacturers cutting production and EV leader Tesla reporting sales down 8.5% in the first 3 months of this year.
So electrification is a governmental and environmental driven agenda. It's not a consumer initiative. There's not a lot of people out there saying, where's my EV?
Joe McCabe is the founder and CEO of Auto Forecast Solutions. His business is to predict the auto business trends. And he believes he knows exactly why the EV revolution seems to have run out of charge.
When EVs started to trend, a lot of manufacturers very boldly jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah, we never drank the Kool-Aid, honestly. There's not a consumer out there ready to buy into a government-mandated issue here. Not when the price of electric vehicles are $12,000, $15,000 more than sort of its comparable ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine, or even its hybrid.
And beyond the higher cost of buying an EV, McCabe says there's the hurdle and hassle of charging. Often a frustrating and slow process, while repair costs are also higher.
Charge it should take 45 minutes, it's taken 2 hours.
And extreme cold can bring special challenges to electric vehicles.
You talk about it being an agenda and the government pushing this on people, but nobody was twisting anybody's arms. And there were a lot of government subsidies that helped people get into these vehicles.
There are those that buy an EV because it serves an environmental purpose. That's fantastic. That is usually the leaf or bolt buyer. There's the other people that, the other 98% of the world that say, I have to drive every day, I need to get to a place, I need a gas station, I can't be down, have time. I have other options out there. Now, electrification will eventually gain steam, but we're going to see in the next 3 years a flattening. So we call it the early adopter apex. We said, look, all the people that bought their EVs bought their EVs.
And while EVs benefited for years from overwhelmingly positive social media coverage,
this is the new Tesla Model 3, and it is the coolest car that's coming out this year.
It is.
These days, plenty of influencers are showing their electrification frustrations.
This is an absolute pain.
Because I'm already frustrated, and once again, it wants me to redo the whole process.
As for Hertz and its mega 100,000 Tesla order, In early January this year, the company announced it was selling 20,000 of its Tesla fleet and replacing them with gas-powered cars.
So has the EV bubble really burst?
It's burst for a time period, but we don't say there's going to be a decline. We're going to see flat for the next few years, and then we're going to see it back up.
Ultimately, McCabe believes the government needs to give consumers more time to make the switch to BEVs, or battery electric vehicles, by promoting hybrids as a stepping stone.
So there was a statistic I think they came out with that said, the raw material to build one BEV, I can make 6 plug-in vehicles, or I can make 90 hybrids. So if I can convince 90 consumers to cut their carbon footprint by half, instead of one consumer, I literally am moving that carbon footprint needle much, much faster, and it will satisfy the government agenda, right?
An agenda that's also up for debate this year, as President Biden and Trump have started to lay out vastly different priorities when it comes to electric vehicles. For Full Measure, I'm Lisa Fletcher in Philadelphia.
And when we come back, turbo cancer. This year, for the first time ever, new cases of cancer in the U.S. are expected to surpass 2 million. The alarming increase follows a period of relative stability in new cancer cases prior to COVID. Experts disagree on the root cause. Some say it's just a backlog after so many people put off screenings during the shutdowns. But some researchers point to the mysterious spike protein in COVID and made in the vaccines. They say it's causing turbo cancers. Dr. Nathan Goodyear is a medical doctor, an alternative treatment homeopath, and integrative oncologist. He became interested in specializing in cancer after he developed a tumor in his adrenal gland.
Turbo cancer describes what we see and what we've seen now for 4 years. And what we're seeing with the pandemic is cancer changing. There was cancer pre-pandemic and there's cancer post-pandemic. They are not the same thing.
Describe how they're different.
You know, before the pandemic was predominantly one that we would say we were winning the war on. It's predominantly one over the age of 50. What we are now seeing is a shifting geographics. Younger and younger, more aggressive, and just weird things. I have seen many men, in fact in the last year, 4 men with breast cancer, many co-primaries, breast, pancreatic. These are rare, rare, rare things that you would see just a few instances in your clinical career. Other colleagues are seeing the same thing, and yet what we're told is, don't believe your eyes and don't believe your ears.
Can you describe a moment when you started to think, post-COVID, or as it was underway, there's something different happening with the cancers here?
I think the first thing I would say is when I saw a 28-year-old with stage 4 colorectal cancer early on in the pandemic. But when I saw a patient that was in remission, that had done amazingly well, stage 4 breast cancer, huge mass, huge lymphedema on morphine, got completely off of it, negative PET CT scan, travels to Connecticut for Christmas, travels home, gets COVID, 6 weeks, cancer's everywhere, and it doesn't respond to nothing, doesn't respond to anything. Those instances were a series of events. And that was the nail in the coffin that said, this is not the same thing.
Have you been able to identify what you think about COVID or the pandemic is causing what you're calling turbo cancers?
It's very clear in the literature. You take spike protein, whether injection or infection, doesn't matter. It will bind into a conglomerate with that lipopolysaccharide and accelerate inflammation by 50%. And inflammation is the chronic platform of chronic disease, and so that'll accelerate cancer.
So aside from an awareness, because this is something people need to learn about and be aware of for anything to be done about it, what is it in terms of what you're telling people ought to be done?
Get ahead of it. The power to heal and maximize your healing potential, it rests within us. I always tell all of our patients that we take better care of our cars than we do our own bodies. We also want to innovate in the arena of therapies that allow us to heal, not destroy. When you look at surgery, when you look at full-dose chemo, both of those therapies have had advancements in medicine. There's no doubt. I was a surgeon. But at the same time, both of those were born out of war. And with war, war destroys. War destroys the enemy, and war destroys everything around it. I think medicine needs a different approach. We need one that heals. Eliminate the tumor, but heal. So what we need to do is focus on therapies that heal.
Dr. Goodyear is part of an effort now to test ivermectin in a study to find out whether it improves cancer survival. After a break, you might want to think twice before vacationing here. If you're looking for an exotic last-minute vacation, we want to caution you. Last season, we visited a city once known as the murder capital of the world, Medellin, Colombia, that became a wildly popular tourist destination. Now the city that became famous for drug dealing and cartel murders, then tourism, has a whole new warning label. Scott was there last year.
For decades, Medellin was the murder capital of the world. Almost 19 killings a day at its worst, and its streets run by drug kings and gang leaders. Most notably, Pablo Escobar, once the 7th richest man in the world and the leader of its largest cocaine cartel, leaving a path of destruction and rich story for a hit show.
During the early 80s, the best smuggler in the world was Pablo Escobar.
These days, tourists line up to take photos at his gravesite, and the curiosity of a chaotic past enough to entice visitors like Lara Fuhrer and Blaine Tannenbaum from California.
You were saying that when you told people you were coming here, different reactions.
Our friends were all very excited and wanted to hear all the recommendations when we get back. And then our parents, who were young in the 80s, were
nervous for our safety, even though if they got on Google, they would realize it's a very safe place.
Yeah.
Now the update. The U.S. Embassy in Bogota recorded 8 suspicious deaths of U.S. citizens in November and December of last year and issued travel warnings. It seems most of the attacks are related to foreigners who fall prey to online dating connections. Coming up next week on Full Measure, 5G's health impacts and controversy over a halted study.
We've now looked at all the evidence, and we think that there is, quote, clear evidence of cancer. That was what the study found. That is why the board recommended an additional program of research. Why was the plug pulled? You'll have to ask them.
The possible dangers of wireless radiation next week on Full Measure. Until next time, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable. Thanks for watching. I'm Sharyl Attkisson.